All right, good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 269. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Background vocals this evening brought to you by my one and only daughter, Miss Leora Springer. If you hear that giggling in the background, that's all her. But yes, this is the 11th of August. Yeah, 11 days into August. August is speeding by. July was a drag. August, personally, I find August is on his merry way quite quickly. We are 3 days away from an election here in Trinidad and Tobago. Bright and early Monday morning, if you are interested in so doing, you can go vote for your local government representatives in your respective areas around the island. That's what Monday is for, local government election. So if that's your interest, you could head over there. But here we are taking in the news on this Mindful Live program. Be sure to hit that like button. Hit that like button if you are looking at this over on Instagram. Double tap that screen over there on TikTok. Really double tap that screen. Get those double taps going in. Listen, you don't have to like it once. You can like it how many ever times you want. Just keep double tapping the screen. Yes, keep going. Well done. And if you are looking at this on repeat over on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, tell me what you think. That's one of the best ways, to help the algorithm share it to more people. Hey, this is good stuff. That's why I comment on it. That's why I like it. And you can share it. That's one of the best ways. Hey, people, good stuff. What's going on with you? Come on, audience. My audience member. Tell the people good night. Tell the people good night. You're chewing your tongue. Yes. So, this evening, we're starting off talking about the idea that it's Pan Day. It's the World Steel Pan Day. It's the World Steel Pan Day, thus assigned by the United Nations for the entire globe to celebrate this beautiful instrument. First hatless view, yeah. She hatless this evening. The steel pan is an achievement, really and truly. When you look at it as being that acoustic instrument invented in the 20th century, it's quite a thing. It's quite a thing that out of a testament to the ingenuity, when you look at what the steel pan is, as in the waste product of the natural resource of Trinidad, and Tobago, you have those oil drums there, just as the discarded bit, and somebody started to beat it, then somebody started to tune it, and what would you know, an instrument came out of that. What would you know? How did that happen? And now we are celebrating that. Let's head over to that article. It's World Steel Pan Day. The globe celebrates with TNT. Today, the rest of the world will join Trinidad and Tobago in celebrating World Steel Pan Day. The stage is set across the nation's capital for a full day of history, art, and music, all dedicated towards the national instrument. On July 24th, Minister of Tourism, Culture and Arts Randall Mitchell introduced the resolution and secured the declaration of August 11th as World Steel Pan Day at the 77th UN General Assembly in New York, USA. Now, listen, really and truly, this being the first Steel Pan Day, you could excuse some of it. It's the first one, things were not that serious yet. Can't wait to make the four. You go, Ronnie, make the football team. But I think the opportunities of World Steel Pan Day is actually probably even greater than Carnival to some extent. There's great opportunity. Just how Tobago was talking about getting their carnival down to a later point in the year. This actually could, so you could have festivals similar to Panorama, and you could open this up because the idea is a global day for the pan. Now, wouldn't it make sense on World Pan Day to have a world panorama in Trinidad and Tobago where the pan was invented? That seems like a great idea to me. Now, tell me, what do you think the tourism payoff would be for something like a global level pan orchestra competition inside of Trinidad and Tobago? To me, that sounds like a no-brainer of a success. And as I said, I could give some excuses for this year. I mean, it was announced like a month ago. Nothing. It doesn't have a great deal of run-up to it. All right, fine. But for me, a day like Pan Day should should be something that is held very seriously on the Trinidad and Tobago calendar. No competition, just showcase, Astro Boy said. Like, I don't mind that. I don't mind the no competition, just showcase. But the reality is that competition oftentimes brings a greater intensity to the showcase. And I wouldn't mind that. I would like to see, I want to see a group of Norwegians, a Norwegian high school band that is trying to do their take on Big Truck from Marshall Montano. Like, that sounds like something. That song, yeah, that was the idea, Nika Best. That's the idea. If you bring her here, she gets into the tune and, you know, she starts to play with the bed, and the bed is part of the secret sleep serum. That's actually, the bed is a sleep technique. That's why if anybody asks me to shave the bed, we can't do that. The bed is part of the sleep technique. Playing with the bed is a kind of sleeping pill of some sort. So she plays with the bed, the sleep comes to her, and voila, out cold. Not quite yet. Facts, we need to see our local and all these amazing talented musicians out there. Thank you, So Chambers said. Yeah, and I understand, Astro Boy, why you would say no competition. I understand that idea, and maybe because it's a whole day, maybe you could have a bit of both. Maybe you could have that showcase and you could have that competition. So you have some of both. You have the showcase where some people don't have to go out there with the pressure to perform a certain kind of thing. They could showcase their abilities, but then you kind of want that competition level too, where people try to do on the cutting edge of things. They try to experiment. They try to do something different just for the win of it. I like, for me, picturing that and a coming together across the world of pan to the, as it were, mecca of pan in the world. Can you picture what that could be for Trinidad and Tobago? Right here in the early part of August, the run-up to it, pan like rain. Us big ladies like the bed to sleep to. All right, Ronnie, I don't doubt that. Competitions tend to attract more persons, equal tourism revenue as opposed to showcase. We have had international pan competitions. Yes, Andre Sam Williams. I'm not saying that there cannot be, that there have not been, but I'm talking about it with the focus of the international Pan Day, the global Pan Day that has recently been established. World Pan Day is August 11th. So when the music class in Sweden is learning about different instruments and the days to celebrate them, and some of these Swedish students decided to choose a pan orchestra to join, well, now they have something to look forward to. There's World Pan Day on August 11th in Trinidad and Tobago that you could go to, and there's a showcase and competition, etc. Now, to me, that, well, it will happen next year. Take your time. Andre, what are you so wound up about, sir? I'm not understanding this. That's exactly what we're talking about here. That's what we are discussing. If we don't know it will take place next year, that's what we're discussing about the possibilities and what would make sense. Andre, you need to relax. pop an antidepressant or something and, you know, dial back a little bit, a little SSRI or something like that. My preference leans towards a music festival for pan fusion with different genres. Yes, and maybe that may make sense too, because one day may not even be enough, but you know, you focus on the one day and you expand it from there, an entire festival of pan. And listen, there are many people across the world who may be very interested in pan, but the entire atmosphere of carnival, the panorama competition, the panorama competition may not be the ideal for an entire family that wants to come and experience pan. Coming during carnival to experience panorama may not be the ideal for a family who wants to come and experience pan. But if you have a pan festival during the August holidays, at the coming up to the end of the August holidays there, you understand what I'm saying? It really does to me set up something for a great possibility. A great possibility in Trinidad and Tobago. And I do hope that we maximize it. In the future coming years, I do hope we maximize it. It's a global thing. The World Steel Pan Day. And if it's World Steel Pan Day, it's something on the calendar for basically all countries. We'll see how that goes. Hey, Richie Rich, what's going on, cuz? Now, going from World Pan Day into a very interesting article. And listen, this article, to me, this article sets up a lot of things, as in how we deal with things here in Trinidad. Some of the regular problems we face here in Trinidad. You know, like some of the problems I talk about in law enforcement and how we deal with laws and stuff is, like, you know, we still have so many subjective laws like the colonial days, where those law enforcement officers have the ability to some extent, you know, as it were, do what they want. They could kind of exercise their enforcement of some of these laws how they want, and this makes doing business very difficult. If laws are not clear, then how do you do your business? You aren't sure what law you may be contravening, what law you may be breaking. And if you see me smirking, it's because it's a very interesting article, truly. And we keep winning the World Pan Festival every year, maybe bar talk, so I heard. I don't know. But let's see this law. Comptroller of Customs challenged over seizure of adult toys. An adult-oriented business has taken the Comptroller of Customs to court over the seizure of several shipments of adult toys. Rana Zamora Rodriguez, the owner of Intimate Affairs, which specializes in the retail of adult entertainment toys, says the failure to publish a clear policy on the importation of sex toys is unlawful. The lawsuit asks for declarations that the comptroller acted unlawfully by seizing several consignments of adult toys, that the continued detention of these items is also unlawful, and because of the delay to institute forfeiture proceedings, it can no longer be done. On Wednesday, Justice Westman James granted Rodriguez to pursue her judicial review claim. Rodriguez said shipments of adult toys were seized in April, again in May, and 2 more times in June. Listen, I am curious what they're doing with all those seized toys. Is it they're just destroying them? I hope so. I hope Customs is destroying all of these toys, because I have heard allegations that when many customs officers seize products from people, these products are often taken by some of these officers and distributed and sold, etc. So I do hope they are destroying all of these toys that they are seizing. And although her attorneys have written to the comptroller for the return of the items as directed, they have not been returned. Like some of these things, I really wonder, like the comptroller of customs, what is your aim for these things? Like, what is your aim when you're seizing shipments of these things? Like, is it your aim that you're trying to keep Trinidad a pure country? Like, when you see this and you decide in your mind you're going to seize this, I would like some reporter go find the comptroller of customs and ask them, okay, all right, there's some kind of nuance in the law here. We get into what the law says, but there's a bit of nuance in the law here. But maybe the law might say that you could seize it or you could let it go through, because they let some go through, they seize some. What goes through your mind when you seize it? What's the purpose? Is it that, you are a very like, okay, I understand if it's like someone who is steeped in morality, it's a very moral person. They are serious about what they want for the country, the direction they want the country to go in, etc. So they're seizing this and destroying it because they do not want the moral fabric of the country destroyed. Okay, if that's your argument, but I somehow I doubt that's the argument. Like, why? When the items were seized, Rodriguez was told the goods were prohibited and deemed indecent or obscene. Her lawsuit says previously she had no issue importing this type of toy. This type of adult toy. She said one particular type of adult toy she imports and sells is a replica of male genitalia, commonly called a dildo. I know from my knowledge of the industry, this is the woman speaking. This is not my quote. This is the woman who sells adult toys. Not my quote. Quoting from this adult toy saleswoman, she says she knows from her knowledge of the industry and conversations and interactions with my customers that this item, she's speaking about the replica there, which is a popularly sold item, is often purchased for therapeutic purposes and oftentimes by married couples to assist in their intimacy and ensure a vibrant sex life, which leads to a happier and more fulfilling marriage. So she is saying there's no threat to the moral fabric of society. This actually helps marriages, according to her own personal research. I have not done such research, so I cannot quibble about her results. This is what she says. Rodriguez wants the court to quash the decision by the comptroller to seize the items, as well as compel the publishing of a policy on the importation of sex toys. And you see, this I think is the main point. This I think is the main point. And this I think is the point in so many areas in Trinidad and Tobago. Brandon AP09, we're talking about laws in Trinidad and Tobago and the laws pertaining to customs and importing indecent or obscene items as deemed subjectively by the customs controllers. And the problem that the lady is speaking about here, I think, is a serious problem. This is a problem we need in so many areas in Trinidad and Tobago. What we need is a clear identification of what the policy is. If it is that no replicas can be imported, well, then put that down there in writing. No replicas of human body parts can be imported for the purpose of pleasure. Okay, if that is the case, put it down in writing. But you can't just have vague things there like obscene or indecent or something like that, because really and truly, for example, the book controversy that went on a couple weeks ago, where there were books about, the LGBTQIA plus group and their identities, etc., and what they do, how they do, what they do, etc. According to that law in that case, then should it be that none of those books could be imported into the country? Because I'm sure by certain people's definition, they may consider some of that indecent or obscene. Like, what's the limitation of these laws? Chambers says, wait, what about the book that's in the bookstore? Well, you said the same thing I'm saying there. There's nothing clear in Trinidad laws, example, data protection. And I have a feeling that they kind of like it that way. Section 45(1)(l) of the Act prohibits the importation of indecent or obscene prints, paintings, books, and pornographic material, and the lawsuit contends that the comptroller has enforced this prohibition in an arbitrary, haphazard, and or irrational manner. It said Rodriguez was entitled to clear and coherent statement and policy on what constituted obscenity about the category of adult toys. She said she was told that she could not import items which replicated male genitalia, which could not be split, or those which resembled female genitalia, and the seizures were particularly in relation to items which resembled or replicated the former. I am at the mercy of arbitrary, subjective, and vague determinations of the intended defendant or the various customs officers who intentionally inspect these items, and if they are deemed to be prohibited, my goods can be seized and I can face criminal charges. I am of the view that there must be a clear policy or guidelines to follow. I agree with the woman. Wide Leather says the ambiguities and red tape in customs clearing is space for bribes and inducements. Yes, they are. That's when people talk about Trinidadians like scheme Trinidadians, no scheme and stuff. This is why. Now, there's a bit of humor in the content of what it is being seized, but this is the reason Trinidad has so many schemes. Because the bureaucracy and red tape ties you in a knot. You can do nothing. And when you can do nothing, what's someone to do? What's the general steps that she would take in a case like this? Now, she might have the resources and the know-how, and I've said this recently, more and more people are taking the government to court, and I could attribute some of that to the opposition. Whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, it might be debatable in some cases. The opposition has organized a war chest that they are using in lawfare against the government. Nearly every week a new court case is being launched against the government from some opposition activists or such, and some of it could be a little unnecessary and uses extra resources from the country, but some of it I think is totally necessary, and it's creating a tendency, it's creating a norm in the society where more and more people are more comfortable taking the government to court. And I think that's a good thing, because some of these cases are ridiculous. I remember another one similar to that was there was a policy recently where in order for you to get a vehicle transferred from one owner to the next one on the certified copy, you would have to pay back all of the back tickets that would have been on that vehicle's name from any previous owner or any previous user. And if you don't know, well, hard luck. And someone took them to court over that, and they hushed that matter up. I didn't the printing of the outcome of that court matter, I never even saw it. I just saw that it went to court. They never gave you what the outcome was. And I think some of these things are necessary because we have way too much of this in our society. Hi, Jonathan. We have way too much of this in our society where we have areas of the society that are just totally subjective. It's up to the view of whoever you run across at that moment. They tell you what the law is in the given moment. And that kills business. It's nearly impossible to get business done when it's done like that. One of the main problems in Trinidad and Tobago. And the reality is, when you ask people about solutions for these kinds of problems, regularly you hear people talk about, putting more laws in place. The government need to pass this law, or they need to pass that law, or if they pass this law, that would be... The reality is, some of these problems are created because there are too many laws. The government is involved in things that they should not be involved in the first place. Inefficiencies, illegal arms causing cargo delays, says Imbit. More difficulties in doing business here in Trinidad and Tobago. And the reality is, as I said, this is what creates that corrupt atmosphere in the private sector in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's nearly impossible for you to run your business above board. Good luck running everything in your business above board, because it's nearly impossible. Inefficiencies at transit sheds and a proliferation of arms and ammunition coming into the airport are leading to longer waiting times for the release of cargo at Piaku. Minister of Finance Colmy Imbich said on Wednesday. He was responding to questions from Newsday during a virtual press conference. I met with stakeholders very recently, and some of these transit sheds have arms and ammunition coming in all the time, he said. He spoke of one particular shed at Piaku, which had to be shut down periodically. They were not happy at all about the way illegal things have been coming into the transit shed. He said government is working on improving the ease of doing business, but also has to keep an eye out for criminal activity. And you know, this talking point is very popular coming from the PNM. You hear it regularly when they talk about some of the banking laws that had to come into place to, really make it difficult for criminals to do business. But the problem with it, to me, is I have seen no decrease in criminal activity, and I've just seen it become more difficult for law-abiding citizens to go about their business. So why do it? And this is the problem with so many government policies and so many things that government does. And regularly you see government supporters jump onto the bandwagon and like, yeah, the government have to do something, yeah, the government have to do, what you want the government to do? Nothing? Yes, sometimes do nothing. Nothing is better. If you are stopping everyone at Grand Bazaar and checking their cars completely to make sure no crime occurs in the country, that's what you do. But in order to do that, you cause basically gridlock traffic throughout the country. No one gets to work on time. Inefficiency to 100%. And then while you do that, the murder rate stays the same. Robberies still occur in the traffic. Home invasions still occur. Wouldn't it make sense that the population then looks around and says, is this increased difficulty justified? The government is saying that, okay, it's hard to do business. You can't get things cleared on the ports. You can't get things coming in easy. We have to charge all these extra fees. Customs is doing all of these strange activities and bursting your package and digging in through your package. All of this is to make sure criminal activity doesn't go on. And no block is shut down. All the blocks run 24/7 as they've always done. So they don't seem to have a disruption in their supply. The guns are being shot every night. The ammunitions are being, when they shoot somebody, they shoot them 25 shots, and it would have taken one shot to the head to kill them, and they empty 25 in them. You understand that they shot 24 extra bullets there. They obviously are not struggling to get extra ammunition. So all this difficulty, not me, Miss Intimate Affairs lady can't bring in her toys. Businesses can't clear their containers. You have to wait 2 extra weeks to clear anything, and they say it's for security purposes. You know the illegal activities going on in these sheds. That's the reason. But the guns are still all about the place. So hear what customs. Don't bother about the guns. I don't care anymore. Let the guns come in and let my products come through, because it's nearly seeming like this isn't making any difference. It's only making life more difficult for the law-abiding citizens. Mr. Imbert went on though. He said these things have two sides. You have the ease of doing business, which we must improve, so we want to get things in and out quickly. But then you have things like under-invoicing, tax evasion, and then you have the problem of importation of illegal arms and ammunition. And to me, to be very honest with you, I think the first two things he said there are the main worries that our Ministry of Finance currently has in importation, under invoicing and tax evasion. They are worried that you are making too much money without the government collecting enough from you. That's their main worry to me. Apparently, the illegal clearing first, then the legal. The same launderers making bank deposits before and after KYC and FATCA laws correct. Customs checking Amazon packages for arms and ammunition. White Leather says all it did was make it hard for the small man to open a bank account. Yep, it did. Yep, it did. But they're mainly worried, I think, about under-invoicing. They want to know what was the real price of your goods because they want to make sure they collect every last cent from you. And I don't like that. That's why I regularly say I do not like this PNM government for those things. Now, there are many other things that you could debate which political party might be better for, but this PNM government, that's their specialty. Locking down business. You want to be a small businessman and grow, good luck under the PNM, because you know they're really serious about stopping the arms and ammunition coming in the country by holding up your packages. So good luck with that. Yeah. Also, a lot in the news recently. There has been some news coming out from the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission seems like a useless organization. Another one of those organizations where, you know, we pay well-educated people hundreds of thousands of dollars to do nothing for us. A lot of the things that government does, you know, they create these things and it seems like just a way for them to pay their friends. Sadly, this present government has done a good job of successfully destroying the middle class. Government need taxes to pay police, public servants, teachers, etc. and to pay the inflated rent for the buildings that they rent from their friends, and to pay the extra kickbacks that they give all of their friends. You know, the pay the police, pay the public servants kind of thing about taxes, ease me up on that. Like, for me, pay the police. Public servants, there are too many of them. Cut back on the public servants. Teachers, I'm a teacher, but I think teaching should be something much more privatized, to be very honest with you. The government spends money. They don't need tax money because, you know, they really need to spend more money on us. No, they need tax money because they spend money. Like, how much money do you think you could give the government that they would actually spend it all correctly? The United States literally prints an unlimited amount of money and they still spend that unlimited amount of money. Imagine that. And you're trying to tell me that somehow the government could tax us enough money where they will get enough money to run the country properly. I don't buy that one. We're lacking workers in health. Cut back. You won't like some of my opinions on some of those things, you know. We're lacking workers in health. Do you think that's because the government doesn't get enough money? Do you think that's why? Do you think the reason our healthcare service is the way it is because the government doesn't have enough money to make it better? Really? That's your honest belief? Wonder if work from home can't be accommodated due to government renting. They won't like that. Pay the police and still get no results. You swear we didn't have natural resources selling at $85 per barrel? It went up to over $100 also. And yeah, we did. And they still wasted that money. Imagine that. And the commissions and groups that we have that are supposed to, you know, make sure that these politicians do things right, well, Commission wanted law fixed. The Integrity Commission has disclosed that since February 2022, it recommended to the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley-led cabinet, that there is need to amend the Integrity in Public Life Act to make failure to disclose information in Form B an offense under the Act. You see, there is some bacchanal going on right now where Dr. Rowley, apparently, he declared some of his assets in one form. And in the other form, he didn't declare one specific asset, allegedly, because in his opinion, he says that from his understandings, from his lawyer's recommendation, this form, the second form, was only for your land. If you have land without a house on it, that's what goes on the second form. If you own property, it goes on the first form. But the second form is for public viewing, while the first form is not for public viewing, and yada, 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 yada. But then it turns out the Integrity Commission came out and said, you know what? He didn't file that in the form when he was supposed to file it. And they say that is wrong. But the problem the Integrity Commission says is that there's no criminal punishment for this. There's no criminal punishment. So, yeah, he didn't declare it, but no criminal punishment that goes along. Brandon AP says healthcare ranges from corruption to not having opportunities for allied healthcare professionals. Yeah, it's not the money. I'll say it boldly. It's not the money. There's no amount of money that you could give the government that they will properly run these things. It's that way because they spend other people's money. When you are spending other people's money, you don't care about how you spend it. That's the main point of it. That's the main point of it. Like, think about it practically, people. If you have $20, who do you think would spend your $20 better? You have $20 in your pocket. Would you spend it better? Or if you gave it to Dr. Rowley, would he spend it better? Who do you think would spend it better? And it's not just a Dr. Rowley thing if you think Dr. Rowley's a corrupt, wicked man. Imagine if you gave your $20 to Kamala Prasad Bisasa. Do you think that KPB, Tanti Kams, would spend your $20 better? No. I do not think so. The best person to spend your resources is you. That's why the free market and capitalism, understood as the free market and property rights, has been the main thing that lifts people out of poverty. You want to get people wealthier, allow them to get the authority and the permission and the right to use their resources as they see fit. That's how you get people wealthier. Simple like that. The idea that somehow I would generate resources, so I am doing some kind of work that generates resources, but the person that would use the resources better is a politician. So I generate the resources and I give some of my resources to a person that works 100 miles away from me, and my hope is that this person takes my resources and then spends it back on me more efficiently. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Now, you could nearly be of the view, and there are some people of the view, that there should be no government because never ever would the government spend your money better. I am not necessarily of that view, because I think although there's the default reality that spending other people's money always leaves you in that kind of disadvantaged position, there are some things that are just too difficult to do on an individual basis. So for something like the military, so each individual person can't have their own military. That's something that might be more useful on a national basis. The government controls that. Something like, I could understand the argument some people have for healthcare. Healthcare, you might think on an individual basis, some people might be too poor, and then you don't want people suffering for a lack of healthcare. So let's all come together and spend and put the money together. But that's not to say that individuals won't be able to do it on their own. If the government repaired public healthcare, then private healthcare loses business. Yeah, but here's the thing, Brandon AP. I do not think it is possible for the government to run public healthcare more efficiently than private healthcare runs. Regularly in the United States, there are some people in the United States that always wants the United States to adopt the public healthcare system. We in Trinidad and Tobago have public healthcare. Canada has public healthcare. The United Kingdom has public healthcare. And people in the US are always saying that, to be more kind, we need public healthcare in the United States. But what many people don't seem to realize is that nearly anywhere in the world, when you want cutting edge of healthcare, as in top technology, they all head to the United States. Why? Because privatized healthcare is where you get innovation. If I can make more money for doing something better, then I am the one that will do it better. But when you have public healthcare where no one makes any more money for doing something better, it's all just the estimated average, the lowest common multiple. That's where you get paid at here. Yes, you might get to run things a certain way, but good luck if you need experimental treatment. Good luck if you need cutting edge treatment. Good luck if you need the best treatment. It just kind of doesn't work like that. Was it the Ecuadorian president who lived very humbly? It's all about the character of the man in power. Yes, it was him. Was it Ecuador? Some one of those Central American countries. Yeah, I remember that. Health is one of the only sectors you can increase prices exponentially for gross profit and still have customers. Well, yes, healthcare is a captive customer base. You kind of need healthcare, so that's where things get difficult there. And that's why, the pricing in healthcare could get a bit strange. But the idea is if there's competition, then pricing is balanced out by competition. USA, even though it's expensive, you get everything done and every drug. Even the idea is that competition is supposed to balance out pricing. But even, for example, in the United States, people who are advocates of the free market, what they say is the reason that healthcare began to get so expensive in the first place is because the government came in the first place. When the government comes in and they insure certain places and they assure certain things, so the government says that they will pay for anything up to a certain amount. Well, then the private healthcare institution is going to raise the price. So it's cartel business kind of all how. But the idea is that competition is supposed to bring these things down. I strongly believe that the tax-free benefits of politicians in TT should be removed. I agree with that too. Like, I kind of don't even understand that. You take some of the wealthiest, most privileged people in the country, you give them positions of power, and then you give them extra privileges on top of that. That does not make sense to me. And the idea being somehow that if you give politicians tax-free cars every year, that's going to stop them from taking bribes. Since when? That has never happened. But, these things, sometimes we are fooled a bit by them. We think that somebody, thought about these things and came up with a way to really do this ingeniously. No, it was a politician seeking their own self-interest. And that's how most of these laws came into being in the first place. Not if the private entity is a government financier and they get kickbacks. Our competition drives down prices. Right. And that's the problem with what they call crony capitalism, where the government gets involved. So for example, that's why banks are, for example, the way they are. If every Tom, Dick and Harry could have gone out on a Sunday morning and opened a bank, banks would have still been giving you positive returns. Now, the banks know that you have no choice but to come and put your money in one of these four main banks. You have no choice. The system is set up in such a way you have no choice. And the laws are set up in such a way that no one could just go and make a new bank and make competition for them. There's no competition involved here. You are a captured audience that has to use this service. Well, then they abuse you. And that's not free market. Those banks could raise their fees on a whim and do those things because it's not a free market. When DSS wanted to basically open their own kind of banking service down in La Joqueta, granted, it had some scheme involved, but so is real banking too. Quickly. Not gonna happen. I dare any of you go out and try to open your own bank. The John Doe Bank of Shogunas. Go try to do that and see how long that bank lasts. Listen, you could probably open a drug block and let it, and you'd be allowed to they would allow your drug block to run for a longer period of time than if you try to open a bank. Than if you try to open a bank on the low. Commercial banks seem to be controlling central bank when it's supposed to be the other way around. Well, money controls it at the end of the day. And when you look at, and it's not just in Trinidad and Tobago, it's all over the world. When you look at how a lot of those things run, Many of the people who make the decisions for the central bank are people who worked in the private banks. So you'd have a private banker who was the chairman of a private bank, and then he leaves there to go and be an appointed central bank governor. And all of the other members of the board are former bankers. Like, are we serious about this? It's like what they talk about with the Federal Drug Agency. The people who are in charge of passing the drugs are very often former pharmaceutical company executives. People who have investments in pharmaceutical companies. So I was the CEO of Pfizer drug company. Then I left there to go and be the chairman on the FDA to tell Pfizer which drugs could be passed. And to add, you can't keep the cash at home because of laws. A susu is illegal. Yes, a susu is technically illegal. Even a credit union, it's law. It's a lot long process. Yes, it is. BlackRock, Vanguard, it's way bigger than US. We puppets on a stage, in my opinion. Correct. It's a global system. It's a global system. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street owns nearly everything. When a government borrows from local banks, they aid in the high interest and charges of the ordinary man. That's the consequence of becoming an oligarchic state. When were we not? When were we ever not? You know, a lot of the visuals of democracy and republicanism, I think a lot of that is a mirage. It's an illusion. We aren't actually like that. It's still very much an oligarchy. It's the strong families, the well-known, well-connected families and well-connected people that make the movements. Read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I know that book. All right, people. Who's on the inside? Are there any comments or questions? Lord, this is depressing. Yeah, it could feel depressing, you know, Michelle. It could feel depressing, but you see, to me, it's not depressing because that's how it has always been. It's like, to go to a pet problem of mine from the antinatalists. Those people who I was reading they're no longer tweets because it's no longer Twitter, apparently it's X, but I was reading an X from somebody and they were like, a series of tweets recently, and a lot of people were talking about me making children in this economy, you know, how you could make children in this economy. Look how the things hard, and they're talking about children. Me have children? No. Good luck? No. And I have no money, and I understand that argument if it's made in a bubble. If it's made in a bubble, I could understand that argument. But my statement to that is, what was the economy like in 4000 BC? What was the, if you have ancestors who were slaves, what was the economy like in the 1600s, in the 1700s? Like, when has the economy ever been better? So, similarly, as depressing as it is to understand that we are basically controlled by powerful people and their connections, when has it ever been different from that? That has basically always been the case. It's just, the thing is now that they attempt to make the illusion that it's not the case anymore. It's just that we have to understand it's still pretty much the case. Good night. What is your take on the brick versus dollar? I presume you mean BRICS, as this Strongy Banton spoke about there. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Basically the southern hemisphere to some extent, and I believe BRICS was saying like something like 50 something countries right now want to enter BRICS, and there are some positive movements to that. Recently we were speaking about the fact that the Afrexim Bank has is opening a branch in Barbados, I believe. Afrexim Bank is the African Exchange Bank that was opened. I believe they have a headquarters in Egypt. It's a bank that is hopefully supposed to allow the African countries to trade in their own common currencies, because the problem has been, someone asked about it compared to the US dollar. The problem has been that the petrodollar, the oil money, the gas money, the US dollar used to make it that if Kenya wanted to trade with Uganda, they had to convert their money into US dollars to do that trade within Africa. Within Africa, they still had to procure US dollars. Now, the problem that creates is, and we speak about this many times, but the problem that creates is that it makes the US dollar itself a resource. So the US dollar, instead of being a store of value as money is supposed to do, to be a representation of value, it became a resource in and of itself. A resource that the United States Federal Bank can print at will. So while every other country on earth needs to go and do work out in the wilderness to make resources or provide a service to make resources, the United States just goes and punches in the number into their money printers and gets the resource printed. So the Afrexim Bank, the Africa Exchange Bank, the hope of that is to allow Africa to trade inside of Africa with their own currencies. Now, the relation with that to BRICS is that that bank was supported for the most by loans, billions of dollars of loans from China. So the money that theoretically may allow Africa to trade within itself came out of, as it were, the BRICS organization group. And that is working against the United States, that Western G7 group. Now, what that the possibility that creates is because it's something that they call the polarity of the world. We were in a unipolar world for decades now. The United States was the big dog. They were the global superpowers. Now what is happening is that we are coming to a kind of multipolar world where you don't have to depend on the United States. There are other big fish inside of this pond that you can lean on. China being one. And BRICS being an organization that would have Brazil, Russia, India inside of it also. India and China alone is over a quarter of the world population. So BRICS has a lot of power. And as I think the United States has overplayed some of their hands, they're actually gaining more power. Silk Roads, well, it's no longer the Silk Roads. What's the new name? The Belt and Road Initiative, I believe. Now additional Saudi Arabia joined BRICS. They did join BRICS, or are they like, what do they call it? Like something country, like a country that works along with BRICS. I don't think they joined BRICS per se. We will see the dollar fall and lose its global reserve currency status, I believe. That may work to the benefit of some people. Thoughts on China ordering billions of dollars in microchips for AI development? Well, China has no problem leaning fully 100% into that creepy future, because China wants that. What I regularly say about AI, the scary thing about AI is it's a powerful tool. It's not like I think AI is going to by itself go out there and take over the human race, but I think AI would make it much easier for a smaller group of people to take over the human race. And that's literally the aim of China. China is an authoritarian government. Now, authoritarian governments have always run into problems where it's basically impossible for humans to process the amount of information it would take to run a country on an authoritarian basis. You don't have enough brain processing power to know everything to run the country perfectly like that. AI provides the possibility for some of that. Strongy Banton says, would using BRICS create inflation here in Trinidad, as I heard people predict? Well, The Trinidad dollar, I believe, is pegged to the US dollar. So if the US dollar begins to fall, there may be some inflation there. And because Trinidad is linked so closely also to the United States and to the European countries, if the US dollar begins to fall, economic situations in those countries would become more difficult, and then that would create difficulty in Trinidad and Tobago also. A lot of our imports come from those countries, so economic difficulty in those countries translate to us very quickly. The USA busy fighting themselves to see what's happening around them. I think they do see what's happening around them, but the US has some problems. The US has some people who don't think that the United States should be a country. That's a problem. The United States educated a generation of people into hating their own country. I find that to be exceedingly stupid, but they did it. They educated a whole generation of people to, critically analyze the United States, and the United States is on stolen land. And they're all aloof and hate all of their parents and ancestors. So because of that, they have a generation of people who don't have an interest in the country going on. So it's not even like they per se don't see what's going on around them. Many of them want the country to fail. They are United States residents, citizens who believe there shouldn't be a border in their country. Like, what? There would be no country anymore. And then if you tell them that, then they would say, yes, because the United States and the imperial colonialism and the white supremacy and idiots to me, but okay. Nathan, you need to check the AI in the games for NPCs. They are claiming identities, etc. Really creepy stuff. Yep, I saw that. I saw they have a patch for Skyrim, I think, that gives AI to your NPCs. Now, for those of you who don't know what NPCs are, they are the non-playable characters. You are supposed to be able to walk up to the NPC in a game and they repeat the same line to you over and over. Hey, Nathan, a pleasure to see you. Are you going to the town center? Hey, Nathan, a pleasure to see you. Are you going to that kind of thing? And they repeat the same line. They have a very limited script, but they put AI into some of those NPCs. I believe one of the chat GPTs they used for it. So now those NPCs give you a whole interesting conversation. They could remember you. They could remember things you said before. Listen, that's some creepy stuff. Real creepy. But does our sovereignty help us? Theoretically, yes. Our sovereignty, theoretically, our sovereignty is supposed to allow us to go out there and make individual deals with BRICS countries if so necessary. The problem is, how sovereign exactly are we? Because to some extent, we are a satellite state of the Western Empire. We needed permission to make a deal with Venezuela. It's like we're in Gaul in the days of Rome. We're not exactly Puerto Rico, where we're literally part of the United States, but we are to a great extent a satellite country of the United States Empire. If you look at it without the modern dressings and trappings of the talk of democracy and freedom and all of that, to some extent, we are an offshoot, a satellite state of the Western US Empire. So, how sovereign are we exactly is the question. How able would we be to go out there and make a deal with BRICS forsaking the United States if we wanted to do something like that? Would we be allowed to do something like that? That's a question. Do we really have sovereignty then? That's what I say. That's the question. Limited amount, I guess. Trinidad can't survive if sanctions were to be imposed on us from US. Well, you see, White Leather, the idea of a multipolar world is that the US sanctions won't necessarily carry as much power as they once did. So the US sanctioned Russia. And I believe during the time that they sanctioned Russia, the Russian economy actually went up. You see, in a unipolar world where everything has to pass through the control of some US agent, then a sanction from the United States is a serious blow. But in a multipolar world, if the US says, well, you cannot trade with us, and then BRICS says, well, no problem, trade with us. There are going up to 2 billion Indians. There are over 1 billion people in China. Africa has 1.4, 1.5 billion going up there. There is an enormous market of people within the BRICS system as a ready market. So if you need a market, trading with BRICS has a positive. Russia has grain. If you need flour, you can get a deal from Russia, as the African countries have recently gotten. Those African countries went and did deals directly with Russia. So, you see, the US was saying because Russia stopped Ukraine from being able to export grain. And the United States was saying, like, those poor African countries, how dare Vladimir Putin stop the grain? He's going to starve the Africans. Look at the Africans and their ribs. Come on, put it on TV, look at those Africans' ribs. And well, the Africans went to Russia, did some deals independently, and good old Vlad, well, good is very subjective in that sense. Good old Vlad said, well, we will gift you some grain all on our own. Here you go. Enjoy. So how effective would US sanctions be if you could get the grain from Russia? You could get the rice from India. We had some bacchanal with that already. You could get nearly everything from China. What would you need from the US? And you see, the United States, I think, is actually playing a dangerous game with these sanctions. If you keep doing the sanctions, you are forcing people into the BRICS ecosystem. If you sanction me and I cannot trade with you and I need to trade, who do you think I'm going to go to? And China regularly boasts about this in their Belt and Road Initiative, their new Silk Road Initiative, that China is doing all about Africa and South America and all about the world. China is boasting about this, and they're saying it directly in juxtaposing it to the US version of this. They're like, we don't care too much about your social and cultural policies. You could go about running your country how you want to run your country. You know, you don't have to accept LGBTQIA2+ people. You don't have to do any programs on racial equity or anything like that. We have no requirements here. You know, it's just all money deals we're dealing with here. You run your country how you see fit, bro. And if you keep pushing countries, we sanction you, we sanction you, we sanction you, where are they going to go? Picture any local grocery without every US brand. That's what it would look like. Yes, and that would be scary for a bit, but not forever. And bear in mind wide leather. How many US brands are even made in the US anymore? So, okay, you mightn't get the US Post honey bunches. Is it Post that makes honey bunches of oats? But all right, honey bunches of oats cancelled. We cannot get honey bunches of oats anymore. No more Captain Crunch. But all of a sudden, you see bunches of honey oats with a Chinese label coming and selling on the market for half the price. And it tastes the same. What are you going to do? Like, already, I've seen on our local market, Trinis are car people. We like nice things. We like nice cars. There's a Chinese brand of car, MG it is, MG. Those MGs are selling like hot bread because the Chinese took the manufacturing contracts from the Europeans and the Americans, learned the techniques, and are making it themselves now. Oh, so you sent the iPhone to be manufactured in China? okay, yes, we will manufacture it. We also learned how to make the technology, and we will manufacture one of our own. Marshi Poo says when Saudi Arabia finally becomes a BRICS member, will OPEC continue to trade oil and gas in US dollars? Well, the US is begging for that. The reason that OPEC trades in US dollars is because of a Saudi US deal in the first place. Now, there are several things there. The US is a very valuable ally for the Saudi royal family. I am not sure if the Saudi royal family wants to make an enemy of the United States. That may not be in their best interest. And that's kind of what the US would be depending on. The alliance between the United States oligarchy, the United States elite, and the Saudi royal family. As long as that is maintained, you get that US dollar being the petrodollar business. We will buy sunshine snacks. They'll end up caging in themselves with sanctions. Correct. I didn't realize those were Chinese. I didn't either, Nisi. I didn't recognize either. But I'm a car guy. Someday I'm driving down the road and I'm like, hey, MG, what is that? I saw it and I'm like, hey, what kind of MG? I've never seen that before. Who making MG, boy? I wonder if it's Volkswagen. So I pull up on Google MG. Chinese manufacturer. I'm like, well, look at my crosses. The thing looks good. And I think they have a van, a 4x4 van, a big SUV, one of the lady-like small SUVs. You know, I do like those small SUVs. Like, come on, man. Why did they stop making big SUVs? Keep the Grand Vitara. Stop making Grand Vitara and only start one of these Vitara and Vezel and Qashqai and all these mini SUVs. Like, stop it. Make big SUVs and none. But anyway, MG has the mini SUV. They have the big SUV. They have a 4x4. They have a sedan. What does MG not have? So, A, you would ban Ford and ban General Motors. Okay, fine. Trust me, the Trinis will buy cars. America will not go down without a fight. Well, the fight might be internal because, as I was saying, one of the problems the US finds is they are not unified in their outlook for their country. Can you imagine if there were a large, significant portion of Trinidadians who think that Trinidad shouldn't exist? It's like where Tobago finds itself, where there's a significant portion of Tobagonians. Well, how significant, I'm not sure. But some of them who don't think that Trinidad and Tobago should exist as a unified state. It becomes difficult to do things in Tobago as Trinidad and Tobago with those people there. So in the US, they have that problem right now. This is stolen land. We are colonials. We are colonists. It's white supremacy. This is all based on white supremacy. This country was built on the backs of slaves and the problem being that because of that now there isn't a unified outlook for it. So you're saying the United States would not go down without a fight, while there are some people in the United States that are actively working to bring down the United States. So the fight might actually end up being internal. Who knows? Florida, Texas, West Virginia, Tennessee, Mississippi, they might end up fighting New York, California, and those West Coast, Washington and Oregon or something like that. Michelle Trump 2024. At Michelle Trump might want to join BRICS. Him, Putin, and Xi Jinping as friends. Well, no, they are not exactly, and I don't think he's going to join that at all. Trump wants to run the USA as the USA intended initially. Make America great again as an independent world power. You see, those are the conflicting views that some people have in the United States. So, okay, there are some people. the Trump section, the MAGAs, they want that massive, independent, strong, unified country. We are nationalists. We want this United States to be the strong, independent industrial power we once were. Okay, that's their vision. While there's another group that wants the United States to be the capital in what was the show with the whistles, Hunger Games. They want the United States to be the capital in the Hunger Games, where they are at the top of a global village, a global community. So all of the the United States, we don't do any of that dirty industrial stuff here. We still use the products, but we don't do it here. We send it out to those other countries, and we bring in the stuff in here. That's one vision, and those two visions are conflicting. At the top of a global system, at the top of our individual system. And within that, there are some people who are kind of on that global system side who believe that the US shouldn't even exist too. Do you think Trump can do this if elected in 24 in today's global climate? Yes, I do think he can. He could. I don't think it's impossible because he was doing it before. The most difficult thing that Trump faced and will face in such things if he wants to do it is the internal fightings in the United States, the internal fighting of the US government. So JFK, I don't know how many of you would know or remember that name, John F. Kennedy, way back in the 60s, was it? He actually was a president that had some of that kind of vision. He wanted to go in there and change the US government from functioning in the way, in the status quo method it functions in. You see, as with any government in the world, all of those elected governments, when you get in there, there's staff already inside of the government functioning. They keep the government functioning whether you are there or not. And there are some people who would want to go in there and they want to change the entire direction of the government. And it's reputed that JFK wanted to change that direction of the government. And in case you don't know what happened to him, well, his brains ended up on his wife's lap. So there are some people inside of the United States that are very vested in the direction that they are pushing their country in, and they do not want other people to put it in other directions. So the difficulty that he would face, I don't think would be from the global community, because really and truly I understand Trump's argument. A lot of the global community is basically just the United States. NATO is funded majority by the United States. The UN is funded majority by the United States. A lot of these global organizations are just outshoots of power control by the US and their global elites. So it's not difficult to make these things shrivel up. The US was doing some of that. Trump went out there and he was cutting funding to some of these organizations. That's why many of these organizations hated his guts so strongly. If you cut funding for the United Nations doesn't run a profitable organization. Someone has to fund them. If you cut funding for them, they evaporate. If you cut funding for NATO, it evaporates. A lot of the European countries can be so open in their social policies because the United States has bases in Germany, for goodness sakes. The United States provides military protection for a lot of Europe. If the United States pulled back that military protection from Europe, then those European countries would have to do it on their own. And then the involvement they have in everybody else's affairs would have to be shriveled up a bit. Germany can't be trying to involve in gender studies in Trinidad. You need to go and build your own army to make sure Putin doesn't rush your eastern border. So he can actually do some of those things. I was now going to say he may get himself assassinated. Yeah. America likes fighting, so Trump will not be a good candidate to fight Russia and China. I don't think any American really wants to go in an out-and-out war with Russia and China. I don't think the wealthy people benefit from that if nukes start flying across the place. Trump wants America to keep all business within instead of outsourcing on a large scale. Yeah, to some extent. what was his thing? Made in America. They're kind of buy local version. He won't fight Russia and China, especially with BRICS. Yeah, I don't think that's his aim. He was the. I think he has been the. Trump was the only U.S. president, I think, within like the last four decades or so, to not start a new war. The only one. Every other U.S. president customarily starts a new war. Trump never started a war. In fact, he was trying intently to stop some of the wars and pull out U.S. troops from all around the world. And strangely enough, U.S. generals lied to the commander-in-chief. This is a news story. They lied to him to keep U.S. Army members, U.S. military inside of countries. They told him that they were bringing out troops when they weren't. They told him that things were happening in the country that made them have to keep the troops in there when those things weren't happening. So that's the difficulty that he faces. Trinidad and Tobago government, PNM or UNC, don't have the testicular fortitude to stand up to the USA. It's not really about testicular fortitude now, is it? Sean Phillips, like, to some extent, that's like saying a dove doesn't have the testicular fortitude to stand up to a happy eagle. Like, I mean, it's not about testicular fortitude when you are literally, objectively puny in size to them. It's not testicular fortitude. It's, Trinidad and Tobago, if you have to deal with the United States, you do not want to stand up to the United States in testicular fortitude, because you are not going to win that fight. You have to fight smart. That's how you do those things. That's how you survive. It's like learning, if you're a population of slaves and you want to survive into the future, but you also want to gain your freedom. It's a technical thing to do. Just running in to kill Massa might not necessarily work. Massa might kill out all of you all, and then there ends your name. We are a dot tinier than a dot we can't. How bad can they really be considering the current options? Alright, people, alright. Any further questions or comments? If not, we'll call it a night there and call it a week. Any further questions inside of the live? Jamaica stood up, Sean Phillips says. Are you talking about with the gay spouse business, where they wanted one spouse recognized that was in a gay relationship and they didn't recognize it? Are you talking about that in terms of standing? Like, man, come on, man. That's barely standing up. That's not really standing up. And in that sense, I think Trinidad and Tobago could stand up to the US in that sense. We have stood up to the US when the US was speaking wild about, what's his is it Bolsonaro? The names are spinning. Maduro over in Venezuela, and they wanted to switch Maduro with the other guy and stuff. Trinidad basically backed Maduro. So Trinidad has stood up to the US before, and I don't think, especially in the present climate, to me, standing up to the US on their gay rights business is one of the easiest things to do in the present climate, because the US itself doesn't even fully support the level of gay rights stuff that they're pushing on the rest of the world. So it's not a very difficult thing to really do to stand up for that. To me, if Jamaica backed down on that, they would have been foolish. It's your prerogative. They can't come in and dictate your laws like that. But yeah, man, JAY, I'm looking to dive out. You know it goes. If there are no further questions or comments, that's all I have for now. Good night, Scarf Tea. As usual, all of this is recorded and over there on my YouTube channel. Head over to Nathan Springer there. Really closing in on that 1,000 subscriber mark. I am currently at 959 or something like that. 959 subscribers on YouTube. So head over there. Let's push it over the 1,000 mark. By the way, once you cross 1,000 mark, you could get monetized. So maybe YouTube might give me a little $1 here and there. So all of this is recorded over there on YouTube. You could head over there and find it saved saved there. And be sure to subscribe. You could head over to Mindful Education. It's the educational institution that I run over on Instagram. You can follow us there. We offer learning pods, homeschool style classes, really small, intimate classes, so students can get familiar and etc. from preschool all the way up to CXC, individual one-on-one tuition for most CXC and CAPE subjects. Also, if you are interested in that, head over and get in contact with us. That's all I have for now, folks. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live Monday. We're not here on the weekend. No weekend live show. We're here back again Monday. Now, I was saying at the start, actually, I'm kind of having an idea, a plan for a bit of a weekend live show. But it's educational. Mindful Education Weekend Live Show. A weekend live where we go through an educational topic. We teach something for our live show. Students could tune in and, they ask their questions. They leave their comments on that. I was wondering which level to do it at. And someone in the chat said SCA level, so it might be SCA. We might be doing an SCA live. You could stay tuned for that. Mindful Education. Mindful might have that educational live running on weekends very soon. But yeah, I'll see you guys for the next one. Until then, folks, peace. Stay well. I'm out. Later.